Hi, I'm Matt Hernandez, and this is Book Chat with You. In this and almost every episode, I try to make this be a conversation with you about literature. Today's story that we're looking at is Pigeons at Daybreak by Anita Desai. I'll read from here. This is actually from one of my college textbooks right now. Anita Desai, 1937 to the present, novelist and short story writer, was born in Mussoorie, I think that's how you say it, Mussoorie, India. Among her many books are linked novellas, The Artist of Disappearance, and novels such as Fire on the Mountain, Clear Light of Day, In Custody, and Fasting Feasting. Almost all her novels are set in northern India. Today's short story, well, I'll also include a link below to a reading of the story and of a PDF, if I can find that again, of the story. So, the story, Pigeons at Daybreak, is a very short story. It's one of the shortest that I would look at. Now, I had to read this story many times. Well, a synopsis of it is it's very simple. Otima Basu, and her husband, Mr. Basu, are kind of just homebound. Mr. Basu has a terminal illness. We don't exactly know what that illness is. I'm sure maybe some people can read between the lines and kind of figure out what it is. Otima spends all her time just taking care of her husband. They have, well, a son and daughter, not at the house, both out of the house. And this story takes place at, I would say, maybe about 20 hours or so. It starts off in the morning of one day, and Otima is getting ready to read to her husband. One of his pleasures in life was to be able to sit around and listen to the newspaper. Then, as she reads, she finds out that there's going to be a power outage at 8 that night. It is very hot, and the heat bothers him greatly, especially in his condition. I can understand a bit of that. I'm here in Las Vegas. I don't know when I might put these videos up, but you'll see me sitting outside whenever I do. It is tolerably hot, and I especially know how hot it is because my phone won't stop reminding me. I seem to be able to tolerate the heat at moments, but my phone has a worse time tolerating the heat than I do, and it won't stop reminding me. Even with this heat, last Saturday, I had ended up getting sick, and then on Sunday, I could have tried for a job with kayaking, but I just don't know if I can do it right now, I have a higher tolerance than most, but maybe not quite that high. I don't know. Making this, I kind of think I should go message the guy again back anyways, huh? I don't know. So, in this story, the man starts to panic about thinking about the heat, especially without having the fan on. I guess the fan is one of his only reprieves from the heat. The panic keeps him from being able to take a nap. His wife comes, brings him tea, and then they have an idea about taking him outside in the terrace, maybe for him to sleep outside at night. Also, it seems to be that his wife has this idea because then she can also chat with the neighbors a bit. Neighbors, mind you, they hadn't always gotten along with before anyways. But then she returns to the neighbor and she drags her husband outside. She tries to get him situated and comfortable. She spends much of the night fanning him. And then, to her surprise, the air's back on in the morning. But then at that point, and there's quite a few, I guess what are called reversals. They feel one way, they reverse how they feel. And it goes back and forth in both ways. That's really all this story is. And at times, you cannot tell how much the husband is sort of exaggerating a bit of his illness. You can't always tell how much the wife does or does not care for her husband. And some of the points here, short stories can be a bit difficult because they can be so darn compact. So very, very compact. And you see that a bit in this one. It's just as simple as the wife says that maybe she'll also run down and chat with the neighbors for a bit. Then a few sentences later, they're dragging the husband a bit against his will outside. And so there's quite a bit that is sort of really compact and really hidden just with its natural writing style. It's not quite a Hemingway writing style where there's an intentional thing we have to read between, but it's just so compact. But one reason I read this story is because of the fact that, I am starting to see a bit of this kind of illness around me in life. And I mean, I don't know that balance in life where we should always grit our teeth and keep trying hard and stuff. I mean, I have one health issue. I'll be embarrassed to say that one thing that's helped me out a lot with it is an extremely huge amount of stretching, but it did not solve the issue. And that is one thing out of several that led me to come back to the US rather than remain in China. And then I have to humbly go to the VA and try to seek some care. And it has not always been so easy to say all that stuff. And, sometimes we might have that finally happen. And I know some people that some of these things I could sort of relate to and stuff. That's really what the whole story is. Takes place in about, I would say, 20 hours, and it's very compact, and that's about it. Now, so still have more time, I suppose. Some of these seem to be too long as it is, right? Now, let me try to get this back on. And I'm going to start to read, and if I do show this on the screen later on in the future, I would show actually from the very beginning. So I'm going to read from the beginning and give some commentary and have that be about it, because I think at the beginning is where you could see a bit of I wouldn't even call it banter. I would call it bickering back and forth, and you could see a little bit of this. You don't quite see Otima Basu's love for her husband at the beginning, but you can see these sort of obligations and annoyances a bit. And it is a complex thing. So I'm going to read it and then, give a few thoughts and close up the video or audio podcast. One of the worst afflictions Mr. Basu thought was not to be able to read the newspaper himself, to have them read to him by his wife. He watched with fiercely controlled irritation that made the corners of his mouth jerk suddenly upwards and outwards as she searched for her spectacles through the flat. By the time she found them on the ledge above the bathing place in the bathroom, of all places, what did she want with her spectacles in there? She had lost the newspaper. When she found it, it was spotted all over with grease, for she had left it beside the stove on which the fish was frying. This reminded her to see to the fish before it was overdone. "You don't want charred fish for lunch, do you?" she shouted back when he called. He sat back then in his tall-backed cane chair. Folded his hands over his stomach and knew that if he were to open his mouth now, even a slit, it would be able to let out a scream of abuse. So he kept it tightly shut. Yeah, so we can kind of see here a little bit, right? Where it's like, is she really looking for this? Could she have put these things in a better spot? How much is she trying to read the newspaper for him? She has all these other things on her mind. And what is the right order to try to assist him with what he needs or with how he wants it? Or is it just what he wants? So we could see this a bit there. When she had finally come to the end of the round of bumbling activity, moving from stove to bucket, shelf to table, cupboard to kitchen, she came out on the balcony again, triumphantly carrying with her the newspaper as well as the spectacles. "So," she said, "are you ready to listen to the news now?" "Now," he said, parting his lips with the sound of tearing paper, "I'm ready." But Otima Basu never heard such sounds, such ironies or distress. Quite pleased with all she had accomplished, and at having half an hour in which to sit down comfortably, she settled herself on top of a cane stool like a large soft cushion of white cotton, oiled her hair in gold bangles, humming a little air from the last Hindi film she had seen. She opened out the newspaper on her soft, doughy lap and began to hymn out the headlines. Yeah, so you kind of see this. Imagine if you were in this position. You are ill, you're sick, and you've just been patiently waiting for quite a while. And you've been waiting for quite a while for somebody to read to you. Or are they obligated in a sense? Must they read to you if they're doing everything else to take care of you? I don't know. Could her operations of the order she's doing things be a bit different? It's a little hard to say as well. Rice smugglers caught, she read out, but immediately ran along a train of thought of her own. What can they expect? Everyone knows there is enough rice in the land. It's the hoarders and the black marketeers who keep it from us. Naturally, people will break the law and take to smuggling. What else? What else? Mr. Basu snapped at her. Nothing else in the papers? She muttered as her eyes roved up and down the columns, looking very round and glassy behind the steel-rimmed spectacles. Blue Bull menace in Delhi airport can be solved by narcotic drug. Blue bulls? Blue bulls? Snorted Mr. Basu, almost tipping out of his chair. How do you mean blue bulls? What's a blue bull? You can't be reading right. I am reading right, she protested. Think I can't read? So we can see this, and then we see that he might have kind of a preference of what he might want to have read to him. His wife doesn't really want to read to him. She might want to read what she would prefer to read. And that kind of goes a little back and forth. And I don't know. Every time I can read this, even now I can sort of notice something a bit different. Even now reading it, I can notice that they are both on like a cane stool, but you can see how he sits in it a bit versus how she sits in it a bit. And there's definitely that contrast. I don't know what the balance are on these things in life. I really, really don't. But I think that varies with everybody. And it's not always easy. We must try our best within our own health to find that strength within ourselves. But time will come, and time does not stop. And these are simply things that we must accept. In short stories like this, where it seems to be a kind of slice of life kind of thing, is a bit different than that. And as I look at this story with my classmates online, we all have a different interpretation, which is why this story was shown. I think some of these professors do a good job picking stories. I mean, this was in the textbook, but so many other stories that we are able to debate and discuss. So oftentimes when I do find, especially somebody reading these stories out loud, they often do a tremendous job compared to me reading them. So if you listen up to that, you can listen to that. And not just that, but I still have a bit of a lingering stutter that is much worse in Spanish or Chinese, but it's still there a bit in English, of course, too, which apparently Podbean does not do a good enough job editing out, apparently, and I pay them for that service, which is quite annoying. So with all that said, have a wonderful day, and I'd love to hear what you have to say about this story. There's a lot to discuss here. Thank you. Bye.